the founder of Pro Football Talk, and he kicks everything off on NBC Sports on Peacock every single day on PFT Live. His book is available where all books are acquired. It came out last month, Playmakers. Mike Florio back here on the show. How you doing, Mike?
Rich, I'm doing great, pal. Fun fact about John Harbaugh. He is 59 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck Noll was 59 when he retired from the Steelers, never to be heard from again in the NFL. It's amazing how 30 years has changed the overall fitness, capacity, and willingness of these guys to keep going, because I think Harbaugh's going for another 20 years.
Me too. He's so terrific with the media. He's terrific at the job. And at one point, I even pointed out to him, he's smart, man. And I didn't point out to him saying, boy, you're a smart guy. But the way I brought it up is like, he's a guy who, in the middle of a season's like, okay, Joe's not working out anymore. We're going to go with Lamar, and we're going to change our entire damn playbook. And we are going to be all in on the guy. We're not going to fit him into what we like to do. We're just going to do what he likes to do and go for it. And you don't see that very often, You don't ever see that.
And that's the
very
best kind of coaching. You take the players that you have and you do what they do well. You don't do the things they don't do well, and that's how you maximize your team. And, it's going to change all the time, especially in today's NFL, where your roster is going to change dramatically. You're going to have to change some of your approaches based upon who your players are every single year.
He was and again he volunteered. He did not like the new overtime rule and wanted the Ravens to vote against it, and they didn't. He doesn't like it. And
what doesn't he like about it?
Because I brought up the fact that because he doesn't think it's going to change anything. That he thinks most people are going to take the ball first anyway. Because even if both teams score the same number of points and overtime continues, you want to have a second possession, and you want to have the first possession of sudden death. I pointed out that what the benefits of getting it second is you would go for it fourth down and 8 from your own 20 because you have to, as opposed to the team that gets it first. That's a distinct advantage. He goes, that's exactly why I don't like it. That's why I wanted to vote against it. He just thought, like, how long are you going to keep extending overtime is basically what his point was.
Well, but the reality is each team gets a possession and then it goes to sudden death. And I think that when you consider how things would have gone in that Chiefs-Bills game, where it had gotten to the point where it was worse than even the most high-powered video game, the offense is just up and down the field, the number of points that they scored in the final 5 minutes of the game, whoever got the ball first in overtime was going to score a touchdown, and whoever got the ball second in overtime was going to score a touchdown. And what would be fascinating is if the team that scores first kicks the single extra point, and then the team that scores second has to decide, do we go for 2 here and pin the season on converting this play, or do we kick the extra point, assume you make it because it's not as automatic as it used to be, and then allow it to become sudden death? So I just think it adds layers and levels of intrigue, and it makes it more fair. It was too much, in my opinion, hinging on the outcome of a coin toss. And I think some teams will choose to kick off. And I think that we will see a team maybe consider rolling the dice with a surprise onside kick if they know that the other team is going to score a touchdown anyway on that opening drive, and then we get a chance to match it. We're going to run the numbers, and it's a 15% chance now to recover an onside kick when they know it's coming. If you pull off a great surprise, your chance of recovering the onside kick is a lot higher than that. I think we're going to see those strategies possibly play out at some point. Now, the other side of it, too, now that they've changed this rule, we're not going to have an overtime game in the postseason for like 15 years.
That's right.
And there aren't going to be many of these that happen, so it's going to take a decade probably to get enough data points to see how it all plays out. But I'm fascinated by all the different strategies that now come into play, and I like the idea that each team is going to get a crack at getting the ball.
Well, I mean, I asked Harbaugh exactly the question that you wrote your post about this morning that I saw about onside kicking to get the ball first and go with an onside kick. Certainly if you have you have a second possession in your back pocket, a possession that you're going to have in your back pocket. And he said essentially, he used a 10% chance of getting one correct. And he's like, if you think that, like, say, he used the example, the Mahomes-Josh Allen game. He goes, if you think that you don't have really much of a chance to stop the other team because they're just on such a roll offensively, and you think it's 100% chance your opponent's going to score, why not take that 10% chance that you get the ball back? It's 90% chance that you lose is better than 100% chance you lose. And that's exactly what he said.
And I really do think it's higher than 10 because we wrote something a few weeks ago about the USFL using the 4th and 13 alternative to the onside kick, and the adjustment that the NFL made last year to the formation for the kickoff aimed at increasing the percent recovery of the onside kick. It actually did move the percentage from 4 to 15, and that's when you know it's coming. So I really do think you get a better than 15% chance if you don't know it's coming, if you execute it well. Maybe if you see something on film about the way the guys drop back on the kickoff, you get somebody who maybe half, not paying attention at the time. There's, it's the Sean Payton thing from Super Bowl 44. If somebody unfurls that at the right moment, then you get the ball, and all you got to do is go kick a field goal and you win.
Mike Florio, PFT live host, author of Playmakers, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Simple question. What's up with Deebo? What's happening there?
Well, when you strip everything related to your team from your social media page at a time when every other receiver that is eligible for a contract is getting a contract, other than DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown, but there's at least some rumbling that Metcalf is going to get paid by somebody and the Titans want to keep Brown. This Deebo Samuel contract situation has been so overlooked, it rarely gets mentioned, and this is a guy who's a combination receiver and running back, and it makes it even more urgent, in my view, for him to get his financial reward. He's got a greater physical risk every time he plays because of the way they now use him, and he's going to have a shorter career, quite possibly, if they continue to use him like a running back. So now's the time for him to take a stand. Now's the time for him to try to get paid. And they're carrying around $25 million in cap space for Jimmy Garoppolo as they wait to decide what to do with him. If they would just move on from Garoppolo, they'd have more than enough cap space to get Deebo Samuel and Nick Bosa taken care of. I mean, they got a problem with those two guys. Bosa's going to want $30 million a year. Deebo's going to want $27, $28 million a year. And both guys deserve it. This is one of the byproducts of having great players. They deserve to get paid, and as we see the receiver market mushroom at the top, it's just a matter of time before Deebo gets his. And if I were him, I'm not doing anything. I'm not setting foot on a field anywhere until I get my contract. Now, maybe we'll see him hold in like T.J. Watt did last year, show up, be at meetings, work out, but just not put himself at risk of any kind until he gets paid. And obviously it worked for T.J. Watt and for the Steelers. He showed no ill effects of not being involved in training camp or the preseason. He went on to have a Defensive Player of the Year type effort.
So Garoppolo getting shoulder surgery and potentially removing his chess piece from the craziest ass chessboard in the history of the NFL of March 2022 has a ripple effect with two guys who want to get paid, and that may be leading to whatever's going on to take photographs off of Deebo's social media? Is that essentially the dots being connected here?
That may very well have something to do with it. The 49ers currently have less than $2 million in cap space. Now, look, if you want to create cap space, it isn't all that hard to do it. You can take other contracts, you can move money around, you can kick the can into future years. But when you've got an easy $25 million, then you can instantly clear if you move on from Jimmy G. And I don't know whether or not they're just slow playing this because they think there's going to be a Teddy Bridgewater catastrophic knee injury that all of a sudden creates a market for Jimmy G when one isn't there. He's got $25 million plus due. He's got 1 year on his contract. I don't know who's going to give up anything of value for him without a restructured or extended contract, and he's got no incentive to do it. So, yeah, the moment they move on from Jimmy G, they got a lot more cap space available for these guys they got to keep. And I can't help but wonder, Rich, at some level, whether there are people in the 49ers organization who just may be concerned Trey Lance isn't ready. And I hear those whispers from time to time, not nearly enough to make a big deal about it, but you can have a split of opinion in the organization as to whether or not Lance needs another year on the bench. And then it's about spending the $25 million, not just keeping it on the books until Labor Day weekend, but keeping it all the way through the season and giving Jimmy G 1 more year while Trey Lance continues to get ready.
Wow, but not at the. Yes, you got to pay two of your top players. I mean, they got to get paid.
You got a problem.
You know what I mean? Like,
if you do that, you got a problem.
Last year it was fine. I mean, Lance was just a rookie, and Garoppolo, you could keep both, and Garoppolo was the guy to get ready, and they damn near made the Super Bowl. But if these guys got to get paid, the concept, and Shanahan was very open about it at the owners' meeting. It's entirely possible that they could keep him. I just don't know if that's feasible this time around. What are you hearing about Baker Mayfield? That's been very quiet. What's going on with him?
I think it's going to stay quiet until after the draft, Rich, because that is the next big data point in all of this as we see who gets quarterbacks in round 1 or round 2. And if you have a team out there like the Falcons that presumably is thinking about someone other than Marcus Mariota, or the Panthers thinking about someone other than Sam Darnold, if they don't get the guy they want, does that become someone who would then be interested in Baker Mayfield? Right now it's only the Seahawks, and who knows, maybe they'll end up drafting somebody in round 1 or round 2 to supplant Drew Lock. But there just isn't a lot of buzz right now. And again, Mayfield holds the cards. Neither Mayfield nor Garoppolo have no trade clauses. But when it comes to a starting quarterback, that no trade clause is overrated. Because if I'm interested in a guy to come in and be my starter, to be the face of my team, the most important player there, the guy who shows up early, stays late, does all the things that we need him to do to lead his teammates, he doesn't want to be there, I don't think I'm making that trade. So all Mayfield has to do is kind of dig in his heels. He's getting $18.8 million no matter what this year. His contract is fully guaranteed as his fifth-year option, and you just wait. And the Browns are in a better position than the 49ers to squat on that $18 million and let it play out. But I know the Teddy Bridgewater thing happened 6 years ago, but that is a very, very unlikely outcome. That was such of a fluke injury.
Yeah.
You know, quarterbacks are insulated from contact. The rules favor them during the games. They have the red jerseys on at practice. It was just a non-contact knee blew out for Teddy Bridgewater. So, you know, I just think that at some point you got to move on. And I wonder, there was supposed to be a podcast that drops this week with Baker Mayfield. It would have been his first public comments since his goodbye social media message to Cleveland. I just wonder if he's going to play along with the Browns. You know, is he going to insist on showing up, being part of practice, let me in, let me be here, I'm part of the team, and will they want that distraction if he decides to be very aggressive? It's all to be determined.
The irony, the irony that if he's like Deshaun Watson, I'm gone, I'm not showing up, I'm done. You know, you know, I refuse to go, and or I refuse to come here, and or the other way around. It would be really, really wild. I got Mike Florio here on the Rich Eisen Show. Last one for you, and I want to spend a few minutes on this. The old Bermuda Triangle off the coast of Florida. Looks like we've got one inside the state of Florida that you keep posting about, and it's really just a fascinating story of this non-playing season, you know, tying into what was in the Flores suit about, you know, Tom Brady essentially, even though he was not named, showing up, you know, at a boat, you know, or yacht or whatever the hell it was for Stephen Ross. Arians saying, you know, he's retiring because he just wanted to pass the torch, even though Brady's coming back, and Brady's role with the Dolphins potentially, and what it might have meant before he unretired, and then he unretires, and then Arians goes, but it's not because Brady forced it. What is your 2 cents on whatever the hell is going on with these 3 Bermuda Triangle data points you got for me?
And this always makes Buccaneers fans and Dolphins fans very happy when I say this, but Brady was going to Miami, and Sean Payton was going to Miami, and that was the plan. And Brady was going to be introduced as a minority owner of the Dolphins as soon as Super Bowl week. He retired Tuesday, February 1. Hours later, Brian Flores drops his lawsuit, which includes the allegation that he was pressured to meet with a high-profile quarterback who was under contract with another team. He doesn't mention who it was. It was Brady. That was in 2020 when Brady was about to become a free agent after his time with the Patriots ended. That lawsuit short-circuited what the Dolphins were going to do. And it was going to be Brady introduced as a minority owner, pursuit of Sean Payton. And they acknowledged they called the Saints about Payton, and they were told by former Dolphins GM Jeff Ireland, who's now assistant GM with the Saints, don't waste your time. I think there was more to it than that. The Dolphins admit that they considered making Tom Brady a minority owner, but I think it was going to be minority owner, here comes Payton, and at some point in the spring, Brady unretires and goes to the Dolphins. And I say all that now because we need to keep an eye on the possibility of Brady going to the Dolphins next year, because he'll be a free agent. There's a no-tag clause in his contract with the Buccaneers. Unless they extend his contract, they cannot keep him from going wherever he wants to go. So, look, I think that there's a lot of smoke there, which means there are at least flickers of flame. And I look at it, consider this example, Rich.
Yeah.
Last year, Drew Brees retires. Okay, let's say Drew Brees retired for 40 days, came back after his retirement ends. 17 days later, Sean Payton quits. What would Drew Brees have said? I think he would have said, what the hell, man? I'm back and you're leaving. There was none of that vibe with Tom Brady. Wasn't that striking to you? There wasn't even a flinch. There wasn't even a batting of an eye that Bruce Arians is out 17 days after Tom Brady came back. And to me, that said it all.
Yeah, I hear you there, and in some ways it does not make sense that Arians would just say, I don't want to stick around here anymore, even though Brady is back. Like there's pieces that don't fit. But how would Brady have been able to unretire and go to Miami? Wouldn't there have been compensation go to Tampa that would be required to make that work?
They would have had to compensate the Saints to get Peyton. They would have had to compensate the Buccaneers to get Brady. But the wheels were all moving in that direction. And I don't know whether or not the Buccaneers would have drawn a line in the sand if it came down to it. I know Bruce Arians kind of flippantly said at the Combine they would want 5 first-round picks. But I know that the Buccaneers were concerned about Miami. I know the Buccaneers were concerned about San Francisco. And even though no one's going to admit it, they've crafted this narrative that can allow Bruce Arians to walk out the door with his head held high and not feel like he's getting pushed, and that's fine. But the timeline is too weird. The reaction by Brady is too positive. And
what do you mean? Hold on. What do you mean it's too positive?
Because his head coach is out. He's back. I think if he had retired from the Patriots and he comes back and 17 days later Bill Belichick quits, there's at least going to be a what the hell, man? There's at least going to be something. It was all just like, yeah, this is exactly what we expected. And, Rich, I say that because, and I may have told you this before. I know I've said it on PFT Live. I was told within 2 hours after Tom Brady unretired, the next shoe to fall is Arians will be out. And it happened 17 days later. I was told that by someone I trust, and I wasn't able to nail it down and report it, but we hinted at it the next morning on PFT Live. I said I'll be surprised if both Brady and Arians are with the Buccaneers week 1, and 16 days after that is when it happened. So that's why I'm very skeptical, because I mean, people I trust were telling me that it was coming, and other people I trust were telling me that this Miami thing was very, very real. And
I heard that Arians and Brady, had gears grinding, and that, when it all comes down to it, Brady didn't really prefer Arians' approach sometimes, not just about the way he was talking, but just the way he would run things there.
Undisciplined.
That's one way to...
Semi-retired, showing up, barnstorming in, messing up the work that he and Leftwich were doing. Think about that. Any workplace. If the boss has checked out half or most of the time and then shows up late in the week after you've been busting your ass all week to try to get things in order and starts changing things, it's going to irritate you after a while.
But I heard that Brady could have still lived with it, though, when it all comes down to it.
Well, maybe they just ignore him in 2022. I don't know what they would have done, but it's one hell of a coincidence. And maybe there are coincidences, maybe there aren't. But this is one we've never seen before, where one of the great all-time players retires for 40 days, comes back, and 17 days later, his head coach is out, and there's no reason for the head coach to walk away other than the narrative that they crafted, which is a very positive, uplifting idea that he wants to hand the baton to Todd Bowles under circumstances where he has a chance to succeed. That's great. I support that. But I also am not willing to believe that it's exactly the way it went down, and that's I know that's not a popular take with Buccaneers fans and Bruce Arians, but that's what I believe.
Well, I thought that my guy Chris Brockman's day was made just because Tiger Woods' favorite non-New England athlete is performing at the Masters, but you just made his day because you've been all over this whole narrative. You've been all into it. It
doesn't pass the smell test.
Yeah.
Mike, have a great weekend.
Hey, great talking to you.
Thanks again, man. Right back at you. That's Mike Florio. Everybody go get his book, Playmakers. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.